All right, here we go. This is going to be the lesson on translating conic sections. All right. What we did yesterday and the day before and the day before that was graph all this kind of stuff. What is this first one graph as?
As an ellipse.
Thank you. It is an ellipse. Today we are going to have an ellipse whose form looks like this. Okay, doesn't seem that major, right? All that's happening is we are shifting left or right the center, okay? The issue comes with the fact that now the stretch for the vertices and the co-vertices and those kind of things are also no longer starting from 0, 0. When I say we go over 3 or an up 2 or something, it's now not centered at 0, 0 anymore, so it becomes a little more complicated. That's why you get to keep the orange sheet and use it on the quiz, okay? This one would be a what? This is a hyperbola's equation. So it would look like x minus h squared minus y minus k squared. All right? The one that I'm most concerned about, we've already really addressed parabolas that have been shifted a little bit. We're going to do some more practice, but those were already in the notes. Didn't necessarily go well, and there weren't any on the quiz that were sideways, so we're going to hit that again. But the one I'm really kind of concerned about is this guy, because when you see this, it's going to look like this. It doesn't seem that complicated. But when I ask you where the center is, some of you are going to answer this. Okay? You have to be really careful. The center is going to be at HK, and when we switch the order and we have a hyperbola that opens up and down, the letter in here has to go with the y coordinate, okay? And the letter over here in the x parenthesis is going to tell you which way to slide left or right. That just makes sense, right? That whatever's with the x is the left, right. Whatever's with the y is the up, down. Okay, we're going to deal more with this tomorrow. Today we're going to stick to some pretty straightforward ones. All right, this is worksheet 13A. Does everybody have out worksheet 13A? I feel like I kind of skipped a slide somewhere. This one, this is out of the book. You don't actually have this worksheet, but it does say here, if H and K are your shifts left or right, all right, right if it's positive, left if it's negative, anytime you replace X with an X minus H, it just shifts. Anytime you replace Y with a Y minus K, it's just shifting. So here, you will notice all we did up top, right there, is replace X with an X minus H and Y with a Y minus K. The struggle comes here. A now doesn't go from the origin, it gets added onto HK. Okay, depending whether it gets added onto H if it is a horizontal, gets added onto K if it's a vertical parabola. The co-vertices opposite, okay? And C also gets added on to the HK, the center, as long as, and it depends, it's always on the major axis still. So if the major axis is the X direction, then it's going to get added onto the X, etc. These equations don't change. C squared still equals A squared minus B squared for an ellipse. All right? This will make more sense as we go through this. Warning, warning, warning. Okay? I am going to teach this conceptually. Like, here's the center, what makes sense? We go this way, we go this way. Okay? We will talk about what A, B, C, H, and K are. So even if you struggle with the conceptual learning of this, you can get an A on the test or quiz if you can use the orange sheet, okay? My point is, I'm not going to tell you it's always X plus H comma K, all right? I'm going to tell you we just go out this way. So we're just going to teach you conceptually, but we'll refer back to the orange sheet. All right, the first one on the sheet that you have on 13A is actually a find the equation, which is kind of going at it backwards, but it's an ellipse, so we can handle it. It says, what is the standard form equation of an ellipse whose vertices are at 2, 3? Okay, counting by 2s on the graph paper. We're pre-calc students, we can handle this. Over 2 and up 3 is a vertice. Over 22 and up 3 is another vertice. And we're not going to talk about this quite yet, but I'm going to go ahead and graph it for you. Over 6 and up 3 is one of the focus points. Okay. When we have an ellipse, what's the general form we're looking for? Something squared with a plus in the middle. And it actually doesn't matter if we do the x's or the y's first because we're just adding, but the formula on the sheet says x and y. Now we are obviously not at the center anymore, right at the origin. So it's going to be this one. And what's the rule about A and B for ellipses according to our sheet? Whichever one's bigger we call A, okay? If these are the vertices, what does that tell you? According to this worksheet, that means that's the bigger one, right? The other two are the co-vertices, the smaller one? Okay. So vertices are going in the x direction. Is everybody okay with that? So this is going to be A squared and B squared. All right. Now, with that in mind, what can you tell me? Okay, so Sean says from here to here is 20 units. Does everybody see that? From 2.3 to 22.3? Okay, that's called the length of major axis. Thank you, Vincent. Now, that was given yesterday. And some of you decided that that meant a 20 squared went into the formula. Oops. Should have been what? 10 each way. So it should be a 10 squared is going to be our A squared. All right, so we're going to replace this with 100. Does that seem all right to everybody? 10 either way from the center. Okay, if it had been 0, 0, would have gone 10 either way. All right. I think we need to find H and K. Now, several different ways. I would have done midpoint. Some of you are thinking, well, if this is 20, it's just 10 units over to the center, right? Does that work too? Okay. Either one is fine. Conceptually, both work. If we did midpoint, we'd be doing this. We get what? Does that work for going over 10 units from 2.3? Or going back 10 units from 22.3? Okay, so we just found the center. So tell me what that means. Yes, that is H and that is K. All right, H and K. So we're going to have an X minus 12 and a Y minus 3 in here. All right, how are we going to find B? Okay, C tells us the focus, but conceptually, C is the distance from the center to the focus. All right, if the center is here at 12.3, how far is it over to the focus? 6 units. Okay? So I'm thinking that C is 6. Just to double check, what kind of an ellipse are we dealing with? Horizontal or vertical? It's going this way. That's horizontal, right? It says here the foci are at H plus or minus CK. Equals the focus. So substituting in the values that I have 12 plus or minus something, comma 3 became the focus, which they gave me as 6.3. So 12 had what subtracted to become a 6, guys? 6, yes? Okay. Made more sense conceptually to me that we went 6 units, but you could have figured it out by just writing this down and saying, well, that means 6 has to be, or 12 plus something, or 12 minus something became 6, so therefore it's 6. All right. If C is 6, that still didn't help me. I need to find the equation. I need B. What's the equation that relates A and B and C? So 36 equals 100 minus B squared. We get 64. So if B squared is 64, B is 8. If we're going to finish graphing this, we have to go up and down 8. We're counting by 2s, remember? 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's almost a circle, isn't it? On this graph paper? Well, on any graph paper. Or an alien, if you're me. Okay? Which equation is right? Isn't there, do you have these choices on your paper? Okay, this very first one is the correct equation. Can you help me find the ordered pairs of these two co-vertices? Yeah. I'm going to take the center and add and subtract how much? B, which is 8. I'm going up and down, so am I adding it or subtracting it to the Y or the X? Up and down is Y, right? So 12, comma 3 plus 8 is 11. 12, comma 3 minus 8 is negative 5. Now, again, you don't like this, you can do it conceptually, right, or rotely, whatever you want to call it. Right here, it says leave H the same, make it K plus or minus B. Okay? Anybody lost? A little confused, but not totally lost yet? All right. The second page, 13B, the second side, introduces hyperbolas. Here was the basic hyperbola that started with an x squared. Therefore, it was opening, show me with your hands. Show me with your hands what a horizontal hyperbola looks like. Yes, very good. I like that one. All right. It's opening this way. A vertical hyperbola opens this way, yes? I want to comment on the quizzes from yesterday. When you graph a hyperbola, guys, you have to graph the rectangle and the diagonals. Okay? Some of you just went, oh, this one opens this way. There we go. Okay? I need to see if it happens to look like this. then I need to see that it has a vertex here and that it's getting closer and closer to these asymptotes as you go out this way. Shouldn't touch them. Mine's kind of cruddy. But do you get the idea? Don't just do this. Okay? Yes? If you didn't put the box, I honestly didn't take off for much of anything this time, unless it was horrible, okay? You don't actually have to have the box as long as your asymptotes are accurate. Some people didn't draw accurate asymptotes. They just threw some lines on there for the asymptotes, and then their graph really makes no sense whatsoever. If I try to be more accurate, it ends up crossing the asymptotes they drew. Does that make sense? Okay? So the actual box is not the issue. It's accurate asymptotes is more important. Okay. With that aside, we're going to try this one, which is not centered at the origin. Tell me what you know right now. You actually know everything you need to know to do this. So maybe I should just make you do this. 2 negative 2 is what? Okay? Just like with a circle, it's shifted 2 to the right, and this means negative 2, so it's shifted down 2. So you just wrote down that H is 2 and K is negative 2, if you need that in a minute. What else can you tell me from this underneath the X? Okay, this is a hyperbola, so the positive one is called A, according to them. So A is what? 6, and B is square root of that guy, so it's 8, which makes C, do you remember how that works? Doesn't it say when it's minus in the middle here, it's plus, right? So C squared equals 36 plus 64. What's that make C? 10. Okay, you now have everything you need to be able to fill in all the junk on your orange sheet and get the right answers. I am not going to just fill in the junk on the orange sheet. I want to talk about why it works, okay? So, I know I need to go over to 2, negative 2, right 2, down 2. There's my center. Okay. This is underneath the X, so it tells me in the X direction I'm going out how much? 6, either way from that center. 2, 4, 6. 2, 4, 6. Either way from the center. Sometimes I need those numbers and sometimes I don't. I gotta decide which way it's opening. I'll come back to that. What about up and down? It's going how far? 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. All right. I have magical tools that you do not have. Okay, maybe I do and maybe I don't, because I can't move this out of the way to find my magical tools. There we go. Cheater, cheater. Yep, that's me. Okay. Now, all right, now I need the line tool and it's underneath there. All right, I'll give up. I'll just sketch it. I need to go through the corners of my box and through the center. Doesn't necessarily go through the origin. This one looks like it comes close, but that's not the issue. Okay, there. I hand drew that and they look awful. Which way is this opening? You told me when the x squared was positive, it opens sideways. So it looks like this. Like the sound effects. Okay, it should be getting closer and closer to those asymptotes. Mine isn't all that good, but you get the idea. It should not look like this. Okay? All right. And I didn't necessarily take off yet. Next time on the quiz, I will be more harsh. But they were only 1 point for the whole graph, so I wasn't too cruel this time. Now, which 2 points do I need then when it says vertices? Are they blue or now green on my picture? They're green. Okay. There's a rule on your paper that says h plus or minus a comma k. You can use that rule. I personally am going to go, well, I went out a from that point, which is 6 units. I'm going to add and subtract it onto the x because it's a cross. So that's going to give me 8, -2, and -4, -2. Yes? The foci, these points up here, if I wanted to find them, okay, were the center of 2, -2, and I went up and down b, which is 8, and I would add and subtract that onto the y, but I'm not even going to bother because we don't need them. We need the foci. The foci are 10 units. Now remember, where are the foci? Show me with your hand where the foci is when you have this little guy going. Inside of the curve though, right? It's outside of the rectangle, yes. So the foci are 10 units either way from the center. So if I take 2, -2, where am I going to add the 10? To the x, because it's going out left and right. So I get 12, -2. If I subtract 10, 2 minus 10 is -8, -2. So it should be over here is one foci, and the other one's over here. Does that look reasonable? Okay. Now, the true pain becomes involved with this. You will count yourself lucky in just a minute. I'm going to go through the whole process, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to require of you, okay? The only thing I know about these asymptotes is that they go through a point called the center, 2, -2. And they have a slope that is change in y over change in x. And this did not go well for a whole bunch of you on the quiz yesterday. Okay? Some of you put things like 64 over 36. Okay? The slope is, no. If you reduce 64 over 36, it's not the same as square rooting it, unfortunately. Right? You have to square root it. If you square root this, and get 8 and 6, that is the right slope. You should reduce it, okay? Some of you forgot the x on the slope, and you just wrote things like y equals 4/3. That's a horizontal line, right? It should have been y equals 4/3 x. The problem is they don't go through the origin anymore. So we have to use point slope form. This is going up change in y, which is 8, over change in x, which is 6. H6 is 4/3. So the two asymptotes have slopes of 4/3 and -4/3. Okay. When I started teaching this, and when I had this subject in school, I had to do y minus y sub 1, point slope form, equals the slope, x minus x sub 1. And then I had to get them in y equals form. Okay, we'll play a little Jeopardy music here. We'll see how fast I can do this. Not very fast, huh? Ah, I can't get my pen back. Okay, there's one of them.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Nope, when I distribute, it's different, so I get a clear different answer. There's the other one. Okay, I think Jeopardy played about 4 times, right? Okay, as my gift to you, and because this is all just about symbol manipulation, I am going to tell you it is okay to give me this answer instead of these 2 awful answers. Okay? You can kiss my feet on the way out, right? No. Just kidding. All right. Here we go. One more time. All I did, just so you got this conceptually, all I did was take point slope form, which is off the sheet. Okay? Right here. Find it on your orange sheet. Asymptotes, not at the center. This one was a horizontal hyperbola. Find it? Horizontal hyperbola, not at 0, 0. It should look just like this. This is the box we were working with the whole time, right there. Did you find it? Okay. It says y minus k equals plus or minus b over a, blah, blah, blah. You can leave it in that form, which is this right here. So if you didn't write anything else down right now, write this down and be done. All right, we need to move on to the ones about completing the square. Yes, we're moving to worksheet 14. Tomorrow we're going to do some more examples of this. Everybody have what they want from this slide? Okay. On worksheet 14, I went through this last period and it didn't go super well. I think it was because I didn't really point out that the directions are up here. I just kind of did it, okay? It says separate out your x terms from your y terms. Factor out any coefficients on the squared terms. You'll see what I mean by that in a minute, okay? There needs to be a positive 1 in front of the squared term when you go to factor, complete the square. Then you're going to complete the square, remembering to distribute. That'll make more sense in a minute. And when you're all done, you want to put it in y equals form unless both of the coefficients are already 1, in which case it's a circle. All right, let's try completing the square. This is an easy one. You guys could all do this one right now. Separate, I'm going through the directions though so that it makes sense. Separate out the x's and the y's and move everything else over to the other side. Factor out. Do I need to factor anything out? Is there anything in front of the x squared or the y squared? No, so if you were fast enough to put the blanks in, you didn't even need to rewrite it. Rewrite it. Okay, completing the square. This process should be like very easy for you by now. We take half. And then to make this equal, we have to go back and square it. But there's nothing being multiplied by that 4, so we're just adding the same thing to the other side. If we take half of this, when we squared that all out, we'd be adding a 9 here. There's nothing multiplied anywhere, so we are adding a 9 over here, and we get -4 plus 9 is 9. There's nothing in front of either parenthesis, so this is a circle. If we decided to divide everything by 9 so that it said equal 1, it would be going 3 in any direction, up, down, left, right, which makes it the most perfectly circular ellipse you've ever seen, right? Otherwise known as a circle. All right, so the center is at 2, -3, and the radius is 3, and we're supposed to write that it's a circle. All right. I need everybody paying attention. Here we go. We are going to separate out the x's and the y's. And I'm going to move the 49 over to the other side, so it'll be a negative 49. Step 2 says, factor out a coefficient if it is on the squared term. What do I need to factor out of those two? So it's going to be 9, parenthesis, x squared plus, I pulled a 9 out of 54x, it's now a 6x plus blank. But there's still a 9 out in front, I didn't lose it. Okay, plus, out of the y's right here, I'm going to pull a 4. What will I have then? Y squared plus 2y plus blank. Okay, and over on the other side, I'm going to have a negative 49 plus a blank plus a blank. Okay, before I go any further, everyone sees that in order for this to be equal to what we started with, if I put a 2 here, I'm going to need 9 times 2 or 18 on the other side. Okay, just we're going there. All right. What are we going to put here? We're going to do x plus 3, and then we have to square it, which is a 9, but that 9 out in front means we actually added 9 9s to that side. I'm not squaring it again. For some reason it has a 9 and a 9, so it looks like I'm squaring it. Whatever's out front, I have to multiply by whatever in the parenthesis, okay? 9 times 9 is 81, so I have to add an 81 over here. It'll make more sense in a minute when I do it again. On this side, I have a 4. What am I doing here? Half of that is 1. Squared is 1. Now I'm not squaring it again. I'm multiplying it by 4. So over here I'm going to add a 4. Okay, what does that turn into? Negative 49 plus 81 plus 4. 36. What a nice number. Because now I need to divide everything through by 36. Because I want it to say equals 1. Well, I can tell right now that it's, is it a circle, a hyperbola, an ellipse, a parabola? If it has an x squared and a y squared with a plus, it's either an ellipse or a circle. If it's being stretched 9 one way and 4 another, it's not a circle. Okay, it's an ellipse. 9 goes into 36 4 times. Shh. Guys, I really want time to review some of this with you. So let's get this done. Y plus 1, 4 goes into 36 9 times. Okay.
And that's like the answer.
Now we need to write that this is an ellipse. Just, I'm going to do a sketch. If you don't have room, I'm okay with that. Where is the center? I do want you to write that down. Where is the center? Perfect. Negative 3, negative 1. Left 3, down 1. Okay? In the x direction, it goes out how far? 2 units, because that's what's underneath here, the square root of 4 underneath the x's. In the y direction, it goes up and down 3. So if I were actually looking for that crazy information on my sheet, would this be called a vertical or horizontal ellipse? Vertical because it's going longer in this direction. All right, what are A, B, and C? When it's an ellipse, A is the bigger. So A squared is 9, A is 3, B is 2, and C is, be careful, when it says plus here in the middle, we do what? Subtract, so we get square root of 5. And tell me one more time, what were H and K? H is -3 and K is -1 from the center, okay? Now you could go back and fill in everything that they asked for on that orange sheet. How much, are we done at,
35.
okay. I think I'm gonna,
10 minutes.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the hyperbola question rather than fill all this in for you. All right, let's go to 18. What are we supposed to do first?
Separate.
So we have 25x squared minus 300x plus y squared plus 8y equals -891. What do I need to factor out?
25.
So 25, 300 divided by 25? All right, who can complete the square? For our blue ones here. In the parenthesis goes,
Wait. Oh,
x minus 6. We square it, and in this goes a 36. Everybody's going to remember that that's added 25 times, though. What's 25 times 36?
a really big number.
It's 900, which is mostly taken care of by this -891 we had over there, right? Conveniently. Don't lose your 25, by the way. Okay, now what? Do we need something in front of this one?
No.
So we get a
Y plus 4.
y plus 4 quantity squared. Square that is 16. Do we need to add, multiply it by anything? No, we just add 16 over here. What do we get?
25.
25. Oh, that's nice. Ellipse or hyperbola? It has a plus in here. It's an ellipse. We're going to finish this one tomorrow. 900 plus 16 and -891. That's, you know what? I'll graph it for you tomorrow. Let's just write down what it is. It's an ellipse. Let's divide by 25. Divide by 25. Divide by 25. It's x minus 6 quantity squared over 1 plus y plus 4 quantity squared over 25 equals 1. It's an ellipse whose center is where? 6, -4. Okay? Is it horizontal or vertical? Goes out on the y further, which makes it a vertical ellipse if we were looking at the sheet. All right. I wanted to get to a hyperbola, so I'm going on. I got 8 minutes. I got plenty of time. We'll come back and graph this one tomorrow for fun as a warm-up, okay? Separate them out and factor them out. See what you get. Okay, does anybody remember what I said about completing the square?
What do you mean? Take the negative out?
Yes, Caleb said we have to take the negative out back here. We're gonna have a -1, and then y squared, what will that make if we took out a -1? Minus 8y plus blank. First parenthesis below goes an x. There, you guys are hard at work. What goes in this one, guys? Plus 3. When I square it, this is a 9. Anybody already figure out what we have to add to the other side? 9 times 16 is? 144, I believe is correct.
That was my guess, but I was just going to say.
Good job, Brennan. Okay. Y squared minus 8y becomes y minus 4, quantity squared, and we add a 16. But do we add a 16 to that side? This side really has a negative 16 on it now, so we need a negative 16 over here to keep them equivalent. Negative 112 plus 144 minus 16. I need some simplifying. Oh, guess what? Magically comes out
Yeah,
16. So I'm going to divide everything by 16 and have x plus 3 quantity squared over 1 minus y minus 4 quantity squared over 16 equals 1. Why did I want to get to this one? Why is it any different than the last one? Okay, the minus makes it different because it made it complicated up here. Is that the only thing that's different? Oh, it's a hyperbola. Where is the center? Okay, the center is at negative 3, 4. Guys, I really need you to be focused here. The center is at negative 3, 4, which is not a point on the hyperbola, right?
No.
Does this one open sideways or up and down? It opens sideways, which is called a horizontal. Does anybody remember the name of that axis that goes through the middle of it like this? Transverse. You got it. You got it. Transverse axis. Okay, it is a horizontal hyperbola. How far do I go to find the vertices then? 1 unit over. It's a very small amount. So this is negative 4, 4. And this is negative 2, 4. Those are the vertices. How far up and down do I go? 4. I don't need those ordered pairs. If I found them, this would be negative 3, 8, and this would be negative 3, 0. I need the equations of the asymptotes. I need to know what A, B, and C are so that I can find the foci. I'm going to run out of time here. But what's A? Be careful. Look on your sheet if you need to. But they call A, what's underneath the positive one, I think.
Oh, okay. So,
A is 1. B is this is B squared, so B is 4. And C, how do we find C? Square root of the sum of those. Okay. Conceptually, let me finish, please. Conceptually, the foci are inside of here. So I need to add C to the center. If I am going horizontally, am I adding it to the X or to the Y? If I'm moving left and right? The X. So the two foci from the center here are going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 17, 4. Here and here. Stop. Let me finish. What about the slope of the asymptotes? Change in y over change in x. What was underneath the y? Square root of that is 4. Underneath the x, square root of that is 1. So the slope of those is plus or minus 4. What point do they go through? Not the origin anymore. They go through this center at negative 3, 4. So using point slope, or the equation off your orange sheet, it's y minus 4 equals plus or minus the slope, and then x minus negative 3, which becomes plus 3. Those are the equations of the asymptotes. Center foci, asymptotes. The other thing we needed were the vertices, which I put over here. All right, final graph would look like that. I did a really crummy job. I didn't even hit the rectangle on that one. Okay. You need to get started on both the bookwork and the worksheets, 15, 16, 17, and page, is it 726? Okay,